Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of DoubleDM podcast, where we discuss TTRPG actual play creation with the best GM in podcasting. Yes, you heard that right. He is the best, and he has the knowledge, skills, and personality to prove it. Join us later in like 10 to 11, 12 minutes for our interview with Eric Silver. But first, as always, those first 10 to 12 minutes of recording or of an episode are reserved for Niels and me to discuss a bit what happened in our weeks since we last recorded, so you guys get an update on our weeks and how we're doing. But first and foremost, let me ask my co-host, Niels, how are you doing today?
I'm having an amazing day. It's just... Yeah, I am. I have. It's slept well, slept long enough for a change. Longer than 4 hours or 5 hours. That's good, right? Hey, but yeah, we had an amazing interview right now. It was a lot of fun to do, and I got a lot of inspiration out of it. Just looking forward to creating new TTRPG stories with everything that we've learned through our whole podcasting experience now. That goes quite some time back, which I always find astonishing how long we've been doing this weird journey. It's always amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Remember, this is recording in September. It's only gonna be 3 more months, 12 weeks, and then we've been doing this for 3 years. 3 freaking years of content creation, podcasting, and just talking shit.
Yeah, it's always just, how long you've been doing this? Oh, yeah, 3 years now. Wait, what? 3?
3 years puts you into the veteran class, more or less, in content creation.
Hell yeah.
Because a lot of people, at least for podcasting, I think the statistic is that the most podcasts start after like episode 5 or even less than that. They stop after episode 5 or even less than that. We're at episode 131 or 132 with a lot of other content also on our platform. So we have like 30 times that much of content on our site.
Yeah, amazing. Every week again when we are doing this, it's just truly astonishing to me. But some weeks it's felt more by myself than others. And today is a day where I just enamored with the things that we did and how long we did it and how we changed in that time period. Yeah. It's just great. So I'm having an amazing day.
And make no mistake, right? Eric, our guest, has been doing this for double the amount of time that we've been doing it.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear from him. But first, Niels, you talked about you have slept well and long enough. Well, I had the exact opposite. I didn't sleep at all, really.
Only why
just like short periods of, I'm sleeping. I'm awake again. What does my body need to feel comfortable enough to fall into slumber? I don't know. I drank enough. I also have theoretically eaten enough before going to sleep, and I don't want to get up. I'm comfy. It's not hot or too cold. What the fuck is happening, buddy? Please go to sleep. And it just didn't want to. So
I know that.
I went to bed at like 11 p.m. and was tossing and turning myself until like 5 a.m. and then woke up at like
11. That's
8.
fucking early for you. That's fucking early for you.
Okay.
I mean, it would be fucking early for me too.
I did not need to be called out on main here. Yeah, I went to sleep early because I have to work early today. I had to, at least, right? I had to work. I worked a 6-hour shift today and finished a big part of my project at work, so that's good. But holy fucking shit, am I tired?
Yeah,
but I'm also
pumped
full of caffeine, so I'm not going to sleep anytime soon. So that's that. That out of the way. Been doing really good, even though I don't know what the bone is called in English, but my the music bone in the human body, my elbows are bruised as fuck on both sides. Thanks to Kendo once again. Last week it was the chest or the ribs. Now it was the elbows. Yeah, it happens. It hurts. I will live. To anyone that's asking.
That's good.
It's a very bruised elbow I have right now. So that's something I have to deal with. And yes, I cannot put weight on my elbow. I have to have this arm floating around in space at all times because I cannot put pressure on this elbow at all. No, it's not broken. No, it's not no, it's not nothing serious. It's not a fractured bone or anything. It's just that the area is currently stressed, you could say. Aside from that, I unfortunately did not have any TTRPG sessions this week because the one I had on Tuesday was cancelled. I didn't have anything. Can I live vicariously through you, Niels? Did you have any sessions? Please say yes.
Yeah, I had two, actually. Two. Okay, I had two. One was on last Sunday. I had a one-shot that I also talked about last week because I was able to spoil some because, but it went amazing. It just was perfect. It went 1 hour over my planned duration.
Always the best sessions, yeah.
Yeah, but we met up at 10, had some breakfast together, started playing at 12:30, something along those lines. And I was planning to finish around 18 p.m. or 6 p.m., but it went to 7 p.m. But we all had the complete day blocked out anyways to just talk after, so it wasn't a big deal. Yeah. And it is fucking scary to see what a group of 6 level 15 D&D characters can do. They, with one character basically not having any damage thingamajigs prepared, they managed to deal 153 damage per round to a creature that was mostly just flying out of their melee range. Anyways. Yeah. So amazing stuff, but it was a fucking close fight. I think everyone was at around 10 to 15 HP at the end, and they fought a red great worm, a bit modified, but a CR27 creature. And from what I've heard from my players, I invoked a good feeling of terror. Not necessarily terror, but terror,
Yeah, I understand.
And some time pressure that they had to do something and didn't know if they had the time for this or that, or if they could do both. And yeah, they all said it was a lot of fun, and I did have a lot of fun, so that was amazing. And the other session was quite the opposite of that, basically.
So was it a bad session?
No, it was still amazing, but the opposite in terms of tension.
Okay.
It was really tension relieving because in that campaign last time we managed to get our stolen stuff back. And in this session we basically concluded most of the things that made us come to this place in the first place, or kind of wrap things up and get along with it. We talked to the local leader of that country because we saved one of his daughters from death. So we got rewarded and talked a bit about our future plans and if we could help even more, all of that. Then visited a marketplace where we just went on shopping and had some inter-character talks to get each other or to know each other better. And then talks about deciding what to do next and what is our plan after that. But one thing that we did plan is to have a house party in our newly gifted home in this city. Ooh. Yeah, so we kind of have to shop for supplies for a big home party because we want to celebrate, as you should sometimes. But yeah, that's basically it. Getting to know the characters better, getting to know my own character better through roleplay, developing some bonds, strengthening some bonds, and just getting to know the lay of the land a bit better. And really thinking about what our characters and we as a group want to do next, what small different paths we can branch out of or off of to have some other interesting and fun and weird and amazing side adventures. Yeah. Because that's what you do, right? You have a main quest, but
the side quests are more important.
The side quests are really more important, right?
Please, Lord of Doom that wants to destroy the world in 5 days, you can wait 6 more days, right?
Hold on, we have to finish 3 drinking contests and 1 egg hunt. That's important. So fuck off please hold off on destroying the world for 4 more days.
Right? It's for the achievement. Yeah,
exactly.
Please wait.
You get the point? Cool. Good. See you in 6 days. Something along those lines.
Yeah, obviously, right?
But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Next week on my usual Tuesday group, I am not gonna be able to make it because of my mother's birthday. And if I missed that, I probably would lose my head. Not that I would want to miss it anyways, but
yeah, I know.
Right?
Oh, well, I don't. My parents don't really care about birthdays.
If I will be in Hamburg for 2 days of the next week, that decides tomorrow.
Okay.
So...
Well, please let me know. We need to record.
I know. I want to know as well. Trust me.
Okay. No, okay. I understand. I have something to look forward to. And that is for sure now the final session of pact breaking in my Tyranny of Dragons game, where the players are finally attempting to break the pact of a warlock character with their demon lord patron. And I know that it's the last session because my players have reached the location to do it. They just now have to execute the ritual and then be done with it. Obviously, the ritual will be, as in the fashion of Dungeons and Dragons, a big boss fight with waves and waves of demons coming for them, trying to interrupt the ritual. But if they survive long enough to succeed at their ritual, they will have broken the pact, or at least have made everything that is possible to break that pact. And then we will see where the story takes us. Since this is coming out before the session, I don't want to spoil anything for the players that might be listening in on day one of this recording. So I'm not going to say what exactly is going to happen, but I'm going to say that next time the pact will be broken and my players will move on to the Metallic Dragons Arise chapter, the Metallic Dragon Council, where all metallic dragons are represented by one of the 5 colors or factions of the metallic dragons. And the players will have to convince them to join the human or immortal cause of stopping the cult of the Dragon Queen, or more, join forces. The dragons will do something. The council is more to decide, do we care for the mortals that might die when we start war against the chromatic dragons? Or do we just wage war to protect anything that is holy to us and maybe save mortals in the process? But at the end of the day, the only matter is that Tiamat does not get resurrected, period.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to see my players navigating that situation.
I want to hear more about it, please.
I think that we were going to start that chapter also next time. So I might have something to say about it. Maybe. I don't know yet.
Perfect.
But for now, I think we've talked enough about ourselves, and we should finally meet the best GM in podcasting. Hey listener, how are you enjoying the show so far? Tell us about it in whatever way you see fit. Go to our social media pages and add us or DM us about your favorite episode of the show. We would love to hear from you on what impact our show might have had on your home games. Or you could review us on your podcast app of choice and leave us a nice message with a 5-star review. And if you want to go above and beyond, bring a friend into the fold. Tell them about our show and refer us to them so they can get a piece of the pie as well. Thank you for listening to DoubleDM and joining us on this incredible journey.
And with that, we are back from our break. And with us now is our guest, Eric Silver, the self-proclaimed best GM in podcasting. And with this title comes the first question. How did you get that title? How did it evolve? How did it work out? When did it came into existence? Tell me more about it.
So great to be here. Thank you for leading with that immediately. Hello. Hi, guys. It came to me in a dream, obviously. I went to a magical plane where an alien summoned all of the DMs together, and I fought it out, and I ended up winning, just like in the comics. Well, first of all, I'm the best DM in podcasting. The fact that no one's been saying it recently, I think the title was ripe for the taking. And I mean, this is going to be kind of connected to the larger conversation we're going to have, that the actual play space has evolved so much since it began. The way that I always mark it is the Adventure Zone, for when the Adventure Zone first got going. God, it feels like so long ago, 2016, 2017. It feels like a lifetime ago, not only because we have to cross the Rubicon of 2020 in the middle, but it's like, someone should say it. And I think that I am that. Also, please blame the amount of wrestling TikToks that get served to me all of the time. And I'm like, you know what? I should, yeah, you're right. I definitely am.
I mean, one of the traits a lot of DMs have is that they're way too humble sometimes about their work. So it's actually fun meeting someone that says, yeah, I am the best. I am great at what I do.
I totally agree, especially because it's like being a DM is like a service position. It really feels very similar to my previous jobs I was a high school English teacher for a while, high school literature teacher, and I was also a camp counselor for a very long time. And, it's like there is a level of skill, obviously, where you gain experience or you're good at something, you're inherently good at it. There's a lot of planning involved. There's a lot of like standing in front of people and trying to engage them and be charismatic. But ultimately, it's for the people who are in the campers or the students or the players. So you're right. It is inherent. It's like I'm going around saying, I'm the best high school teacher. I'm the best public school teacher that exists. So yes, I definitely agree. I think also this is my sports background a little bit. They're like, I don't know if you, obviously, because no one should care about baseball outside of the United States. There's an expression that someone's like a 5-tool player, which means that they have all the tools that you need to play baseball. Like you can hit, you can run, you can throw, etc. And I've spent so much time listening and consuming and being in like the milieu of the actual play space that it's like I'm getting to the point where I'm analyzing the other DMs and seeing their tools. And like, yes, the most popular DMs are very, very talented. I just think that I have all 5 tools and some of them have less than that. And that's why I'm the best DM in podcast.
Okay, let me put you on the spot maybe a little bit with that. What are the 5 tools of a good GM or of the best GM in podcasting, in your opinion?
Well, obviously hitting for power is one of the most important ones. Yeah, I think the 5 tools, because I think that it's spread. I'm trying to think of the DMs and the GMs that are out there that are very good at specific things. I think that Matt Mercer, for example, he one of the tools is voices, right? He's so good at voices. He literally does that as his job, right? So that's one. And of course, like Brennan Lee Mulligan, his greatest tool is the fact that he's writing a novel in his head as he's doing it and being able to improv that. So I think maybe that could be improvisational ability and also the ability to keep a story in your head and that you're writing a story at the same time. I think that Brian Murphy of Not Another D&D Podcast is very good at like straight up Dungeons and Dragons mechanics, setting up massive and epic fights in the classic capital F fantasy way. But then I think there's a lot of space for like, letting experimentation and letting other things in. I think that a lot of the ways that we look at the biggest shows right now is that we revolve around kind of like the improv one and the voices one the most because of the way that like the biggest actual play exists. When you think of those types of shows, the really top heavy ones, it's like it's filmed in LA with actors and improvers and comedians who exist, and they play a rules light version of Dungeons and Dragons, one that is actually more closer to long form improv than actual game. So when you look at that, yes, then you only actually need a few tools, or you can only focus on 2. But I think that there's a lot also happening, and also, some people have special skills. Like I think that being a game designer myself, I end up making a lot of my own game mechanics and putting it in. And also the fact that I've played so many other tabletop RPGs, I pull it in and make up for the places where Dungeons and Dragons is lacking. I cannot write music. Griffin McElroy has the one out of me. But all the other ones I'm very good at.
There's always a thing you can improve on.
Yeah, I got to get really good at the MIDI keyboard. Once I'm with that, then I have the secret 6th tool.
Always having room for growth in that regard is also a tool, I guess, right?
Right. I learned that from wrestlers, is that they're like, I'm the greatest of all time, but also I could grow. Hulk Hogan was always trying to improve himself.
And just so everyone gets to know you a bit more, and I just want to know how you got into the hobby of TTRPGs as a whole. How did you start starting D&D TTRPGs in general? When did it all get to where it is now, or the beginning to where it is now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was definitely on the wave of people who found the game when 5th edition came out and when it all started getting popular. I think that, seeing the community episode is the one that pushed me over the edge. I was not a Stranger Things child. I was a community child. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really fun. Because I was really into video games. I still am. And I'm really into board games. I saw this as another kind of extension of the whole thing, but I had no idea how to get into it. So I tried to I bought the DM's guide and the player's guide just to get into it. And then I read the whole thing and I'm like, okay, I get this. This totally makes sense to me. You make a character sheet and you play it and you see what happens. I ended up playing one game with a DM that used like a mat, and I have never played on an actual play mat after that. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty slow. I played a halfling ranger named Eerie Goldbottle because I really wanted to ride a mastiff as my mount, because if you're a small character, then you can ride dogs. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude, I extremely want to do that and shoot people with an arrow. But that game, I only played one session of that game, and then eventually I tried to play with a bunch of my friends who eventually became the Multitude Podcast Collective. One of my friends bailed at the last second of DMing. They're like, I don't have enough time to do this. I did a bunch of prep, but you can just do it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could do this. I've been listening to Griffin McElroy do it, so I guess I can just pick it up. And then in the second session of that, I made that person cry out of emotion through role play. And I'm like, oh, I actually might be good at this. I actually can do it. The session was, which I had to pull together because someone canceled at the last second, was that a bunch of Koatoa created a god that was put together by an adventuring party, like focus group sort of company. And then the demigod was unleashed. And then there were parallels between the demigod that was created and this character's father who had died. And then my player actually was crying. And I was like, all right, here we go. Great. I moved someone to tears immediately. Hell yeah. And then, of course, even in 2016, 2017, when we started kicking around the idea of joining the party, Brandon Grugel, who is one of my players and edits the show, is very incredibly talented sound designer. We had been listening to the Adventure Zone and we're like, you know what? There are ways that we can do this and do it our way and do it in ways that we think put our own spin on it and maybe make it better in certain ways. Because, we were trying to work full time in audio. I was working at this job where I was listening to the first episode of all of the actual play shows that existed in 2016, 2017, because it was for a podcast recommendation project that never got off the ground. So I was making a playlist of the first episodes that actually were good. And I'm like, oh, there are 4 pillars of bad D&D podcasts out there, which I noticed right from the beginning, even all the way back in 2017. And I'm like, if we can combat that, then we can already get off to a good start and try to make our episode 1 good from the beginning. These are still problems that plague actual plays now. And it hasn't changed that much because people are still just being like, we'll record our game. It's it really is a show. And all of the stuff that we did with Join the Party of starting this kind of grew into the larger podcast company that is now my full-time job that I'm the head of creative at. The tenets of that show coming together. And Brandon is our head of production, and Amanda is our CEO, who are the initial players who started Join the Party. It's we took the actual play show seriously from the beginning as an actual piece of media, of art, and then it became the basis of our jobs. And that's how I feel everyone should take their podcast, instead of being embarrassed about it, being like, no, this is a form, this is a medium, and we're going to lean into the medium.
I really, really feel that, and I very much agree with it, because I am a very avid actual play listener and also watcher on Twitch. And I'm not saying that the people that just say, hey, let's start something for fun are doing it wrong or that it's bad. But there's a difference between the people that say, this is a show, we're creating art, we're creating a show, and we're trying the best to make this entertaining for not just ourselves. And those, for example, one big thing I always feel, I can feel, is the people that bring inside jokes from before they started playing into their games. And I'm like, you guys are laughing for 3 minutes now. I cannot. I don't know what this inside joke means.
No, that's one of the, that was one of the pillars, actually. That was one of the pillars, is keeping the jokes in world. You can't bring in jokes from outside, or you can't only deliver, this was 2016 and in America in 2016, right after Trump became president. And there was a very specific type of nerd that could exist. It's you could be Will Wheaton or you could be Chris Hardwick, and that's it. Those are the only types of people who are allowed to engage in nerdy content. And I think that also is, so it's like, okay, we need to be open and available to everyone if you haven't had a specific pop culture diet of 1980s American boy movies. There's an entire episode where where in the Adventure Zone where they talk about Tom Bodett. I don't know who Tom Bodett is, and I doubt you guys do either.
No idea.
No, he was just an actor who like represented Motel 6, which was a chain of motels. It's like no idea. And that was the basis of one episode. That was like the basis of the first episode of the train mystery arc. That was like the second arc of the second main arc of the show. What are we doing? And so I'm 100% with you. I don't think that's like pointing out that that's exclusionary. I don't think it is a problem, especially because I think that a lot of like success, there's a lot of survivorship bias to it. Like the reason why people thought they could do it is because Critical Role started in the middle of their campaign. They picked up a home game and then started recording it. So it's like there's a lot of, no one really understood what was going on, and then it just kind of rolled from there.
Since you mentioned Critical Role, I want to stay on especially Critical Role, right? Because they are the biggest, they are the epitome that many people use as inspiration for how they should start their game.
Yes.
The problem is with Critical Role, it didn't have the success only because it was a D&D high fantasy campaign. It was because there are 8 at the beginning, 9 people at that table that had very good chemistry, at least in front of a camera. That was what drew people in. Not the fact that they played D&D. Sure, that was a fun, cool thing, but the thing that really was important was the chemistry between players and GM, and that they all been friends for so long. And also very much clearly because they all knew what they were doing. They were actors. They are voice actors. They know exactly how to play a character. Basically, it transcends the normal, okay, we're in a dungeon, I lockpick the door.
Right.
They took 5 minutes to roleplay who is lockpicking the door and how do you do it, right? That's where the success came from. When you look at other actual plays and say, I want to do that, analyze what about them makes you want to do it, and then do it. Even if maybe other actual plays are doing it differently, if you know why you're doing it, you're going to have more success, I think, than when you're just saying, yeah, let's do it. When you think about why you want to do it and how you do it.
Yeah, I think it's important now is like, if you can hear what we're doing, we're analyzing this like you're analyzing literature or movies or TV, right? It's like we are looking at what makes this thing successful and also what is incongruous to a listener. And of course, like we're not saying that. Of course, they're very talented. Of course, they're very popular. They gained that reputation for, putting that stuff out for over an extended period of time and the power of their personality, of course. But I think that when we are starting, if you are creating a movie and you're like, I'm going to do exactly what Quentin Tarantino does, why are you doing that? Well, they're like, why are you not doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing? And I think it's important to point out, much like the 5-tool thing I was saying about DMs and GMs before, why is this show successful? Why are they good at this? And then how do I lean into the thing I'm good at and make my type of show? I think that's always the thing that you need to think about for every podcast and everything out there. I think it also is getting kind of muddied because the actual play show is now becoming the default for I'm going to stoke the parasocial relationship between me and my listeners of YouTube channels and Twitch channels and etc. And I think that that's fine. I think that there was like a flare up when Smosh, that like comedy YouTube channel, came back and immediately started an actual play show. I'm like, okay, fine. That makes it, from a content perspective, as I am a executive at a content company. It's like, yeah, I understand why you're doing that. I'm not going to be mad at you for starting one. It's a very good genre and it's very fun and I love doing it. But I think that you need to like understand like why they're doing it, and then that shouldn't keep you. The fact that people who already have audiences are doing this should not keep you from also wanting to doing it. Like, they're not gatekeeping it. They're just being like, oh, this would be a good idea, and you should figure out why. And you should figure out why your show is good on its own instead of trying to compare yourself to the reasons why other people might start participating in this genre.
Yeah, and with you mentioning just what you should look out for, and you mentioned before the 4 pillars of bad, and I want to dive a bit deeper on that. One that you mentioned was inside jokes or outworld jokes, that those shouldn't really have a place in your podcast. But what are the other 3 pillars of bad? I'm excited. I'm interested to see to hear this.
I came up with this in 2017, and every so often I'm like, even after that, I'm like, what is the 4th one? I'm trying to remember. And remember, this was looking at this in like 2016, 2017. I think that larger thing of no inside jokes was also like, is now, from what I understand, is like, don't be exclusionary. There should be something for everyone, and you shouldn't feel like you cannot be making active content that feels like people are on the outside, except for bigots. They can feel like they're on the outside, but you should not you should not be gatekeeping the content from anyone because of the jokes you're making or the references you're making is something that you got to like keep in your mind. I think the second one, and this is still a problem, but it was 100% a problem in 2017 before everyone had their own podcasting mic. Bad audio quality. This was really just put a microphone in the middle of the table and then start recording. The pillars of that. So doing that from the beginning, but I think people are a lot better at that. I think an extension of that now is like a lot of people are good at editing and sound design, and you should invest in someone who can do that. I think that the thing that made Join the Party stand out when we were doing our first campaign was the fact that we had someone who is so talented at editing and sound design, and made it feel like a piece of audio fiction, audio drama, especially when that genre was also blooming kind of at the same time and in a parallel track to actual play. I cannot remember the other 2. It has been so long.
No worries.
It is like part of my origin story, and I cannot. And it's been like distributed and subsumed. It feels almost archaic at this point to point it out, because it's such like a deal. I'm looking at different types of shows as compared to like what was out there in 2017.
No, but okay. I want to talk about the audio thing for a second, because it's not a rule, but it's a rule of thumb, more or less. When I start a new actual play, I'm like, I can live with some audio problems or not the perfect audio quality, right? Because you're also our podcast started with headset microphones, right? For me, it's not necessarily about, right? For example, the first episode has bad audio, and that means the whole show is not worth my time. But it's more, do I feel like, for example, do I listen to the newest episode that is now 6 months after you've started? Do I see a change? Do I see that you're invested in improving the quality of your show? Because if I do, then I'm saying, okay, I will bear through all of that bad audio, through all the background noise, because I know that there's investment in it. And that is, at least for me as a listener, a lot more important than having the perfect studio quality from day one. Because then I always say, just as a reminder for people, Critical Role didn't fix their audio till like episode 45 of their first campaign. They had a production team behind that. When you're only 4 people sitting around a table and have one mic, sure, it might not sound great, and you need to know that, and you need to think about ways to better that, but you don't have to break your back instantly and get like 4 of the most high quality podcast mics out there. I just need to see that there is some thought put into quality.
Yes, and I think that the thing that people think is, I need better microphones.
Yes.
But there are so many things you can do to improve your audio quality that are not get a better microphone. Yeah. On Multitude, we invest, we spend a lot of time writing free resources that for all types of podcasters that you can check out over at multitude.production/resources.
Link in the description.
And a new article we put out recently was that we tried to make the cheapest way to start a podcast in a way that we think you're putting your best foot forward, both from a software and hardware perspective, but also a lot of things you can do for free just to kind of make things better. And like there are good microphones out there that are like $100, $150, you know? And I understand that that's prohibitive, but like getting decent microphones and like investing in good art, I would say, is the best use of your time, instead of buying like $600 microphones for everybody. If you want to improve your audio quality, one, make sure your dog isn't barking the entire time, or edit that out. Make sure that put some sound baffling up in your room, like put some soft tapestries up or put some clothes over doors and everything. And then there's software that helps make everyone sound better. That I think that in talking to someone who's very good at editing and knows audio, they will be like, oh yeah, I have Ozone, I have Isotope, I'm going to use that, and then you can kind of just like fix it up where you can RX it and then it will sound better. So there's a lot of things you can do that isn't just like invest $1,000 into a microphone.
It's fun because, right, I study computer science currently at a university here in Berlin, and one of the first things in the first course I've ever took that our professor said was there are two ways to fix a problem in IT. It's throw enough time at it or throw enough money at it.
Right.
And I think a lot of people obviously go to money because for most people, time is more valuable than money, and they just throw the money at it. But just having a good microphone doesn't do much if the microphone just isn't right for the studio or the room you're currently recording in. And if you just would have invested the time to buy like a mic that would be way cheaper and research, okay, how do I get my room to do that, what I want to do, would have maybe been cheaper. But yeah, it just reminded me of that little anecdote from that.
No, I think it's similar. I think it comes down to editing, right? Is like, how are you going to make your podcast sound better? Are you going to edit it for 5 hours? Are you going to buy incredibly expensive microphones and then just like stream it? I think that there's also such a difference between a streaming game and a podcast or a piece of edited video like Dimension 20 that is also, you know, when you just kind of rip the audio and you put it somewhere from a stream, I don't want to listen to a 4-hour episode. And I think that, like, again, the success of Critical Role has warped people's ideas of what fundamentally we should be doing, or what is the media that you are in, what is the best practices for that. Like, you need to edit. If you're streaming, you better be really, all of you better be really charismatic because you're performing, right? You're performing without a break for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. If you're editing, actually edit. If it's going to be something that is not streamed, people would expect editing from you, and you should do that.
It's such a pet peeve of mine, by the way, when people say podcast actual plays are the same as stream actual plays, because I think there's such a high difference. I've played like 5 sessions of a Call of Cthulhu actual play stream. And in that 5 sessions, I realized I like playing with all of these people. I was so sad that the whole group fell apart and we couldn't stay streaming anymore. But I was like, I am such more of a podcast guy. There's such a huge difference between streaming for 4 hours and recording a podcast for 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's not just for podcasts, but for anything, really. If you're talking live in front of an audience, you just have to have a different mindset than if you record bits and bobs and fuse it together to make an educational video, for example. And if you're in university, the professor in front has to talk for 2.5 hours and make it somewhat enticing, interesting to keep the attention of everyone.
Or not.
Or that's the preferred way. That should happen. It doesn't, but that's a different part.
For sure.
You could use condense the information of that 2-hour lecture into a 15-minute edited video with some animations and stuff. But the difference between what you say and how you say it and how you act during that is massive. Just through the art of presentation that you choose, rather being at a live conversation or being at a conversation, a presentation, or just putting a video out. It's a complete massive difference between the different ways you can present a piece of information or media that you want to put out there.
100%. Yeah. I think that this is something that the play any other game other than Dungeons & Dragons crowd is pulling at, is like the world of games is so wide and you need to learn other things other than the one thing you know. And I think that similarly, like saying that only looking at one show and saying this is the only way to do it without applying a critical, like lower capital C critical lens to it. And then also saying Dungeons & Dragons is the only game I'll ever play. Like, you need to expand your mind. I mean, movie directors and movie writers love movies. They immerse themselves in the medium. You need to read books if you're going to write a good book. I think it's similarly, you need to immerse yourself in everything that this artistic medium has for you if you're going to make something that's in conversation with the larger artistic medium, even if the genre right now is so top heavy and it's pulling towards only one style and apparently recording only in one place and with only one type of people. There can be more, but it's just because it's the most popular doesn't mean it's the quote unquote best.
For sure. So let's talk about one of these staple actual plays, and I'm talking about Join the Party.
Yeah!
Because we haven't even actually talked about Join the Party itself. And just as a quick snippet from the Spotify of one of your recent episodes, your episode descriptions at least, Join the Party is an actual play podcast with tangible worlds, genre-pushing storytelling, and collaborators who make each other laugh each week. And I want just for you to explain to me that is the condensed essence of Join the Party.
Yes.
And I'm just going to ask the question. You can answer it however you like. Why? Or how?
Very true. First of all, I want to say, that is something that we grabbed from that form is something that we actually grabbed from Friends at the Table. Friends at the Table has a similar thing where they say at the beginning of every episode, they have like that list of 3 things from the beginning. And it's, we thought it was really good. And those are things that we do on all of our shows. All of the podcasts have a nugget like that we hopefully start every episode with. It's harder with actual play, obviously, because it's fiction. But like all of our nonfiction shows, we start with something like that, like Spirits, which is the mythology show that Amanda and Julia is. Spirits podcast is a boozy dives into myths and legends. Every week we pour a drink and learn about a story from around the world. And that's always the thing. So we wanted to have something like that in the show description for Join the Party. So again, like learning actual play fitting within the larger podcasting conversation and then fitting in the tradition and history of actual plays, right? Can you read off each one in each quality individually and ask me?
Okay,
I really said it and forget it. I didn't remember specifically what that thing is.
I want to start with the maybe easiest, maybe hardest, collaborators who make each other laugh each week.
We've already touched on this a little bit, but it's important that like everyone has fun with each other. And, Amanda, Brandon, and I have been playing Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop RPGs together for 6 years now. Amanda is also my wife, so I feel very close. I feel very close with her. Amanda and Julia are childhood friends, and I met Brandon was the one who Brandon and I were the ones who sparked this love of actual play when we started the same job, and Brandon had a bandana of the Adventure Zone, and I'm like, oh, sick, I love that show, and then it was just on from there. So yeah, we just have a lot of fun. I think that there is a balance of trying to make each other laugh and tell jokes, and then doing that in world instead of like goofing for 20 minutes. And then, it's like you want your characters to have fun banter. Dungeons and Daddies calls this, because it happens to them all the time, a 1 foot episode, because all they do is get 1 foot out the door. And I mean, those are types of shows that exist where they just kind of like, they're comedians and improvers who make each other laugh. But I think that putting that one at the end of this sentence is like important, trying to make each other laugh and enjoy each other's company in world and at the table together. Like that closeness certainly comes through, but we're trying to do that like third after those first 2.
Yeah. So let's talk about the tangible worlds. What does that mean? Why do you think that that's so important to the essence of your show?
I think that this is one of the things I do the best, is that I really love world building and then applying the world building. But I think that from a DM perspective, you might think, hey, DoubleDM, is this good when a DM just kind of writes a novel and drops it on their table? Is that good?
Well, it depends. No, it's really... I can respect having a lot of intricate lore, but at least for a show, no. Because it's way too much for a listener to especially engage in.
Even in a home game, I would say having lore is great, but if you want to play a TTRPG, don't write a novel. Right. Write a novel for the history of the world, but anything the players touch shouldn't be predetermined. Yeah. Other than, hey, the history of that fucking town, because that was before anything happened, before your character was born or anything.
I would say even there, nothing is more fun to me than having players come up with history.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They're just so engaged. I've been really into world building games lately. I've written a few of my own after at being inspired by Avery Alder and also my single favorite named tabletop RPG that exists. I'm sorry, did you say Street Magic? Which is another incredibly good world building game. And also seeing how many people would take, what's the famous one that Avery Alder, The Quiet Year, using The Quiet Year as you're not supposed to use it as the building blocks of a campaign. It's the reason why it's called A Quiet Year is that the Frost Knights come and destroy it at the end. So that's why you do it. You're creating something that is inherently ephemeral. So I've been thinking a lot about how to use world building games to engage our worlds. And I think that starting in campaign 2, I've done this 3 times in the show. I've been really happy with how things have shaken out. in terms of like letting my players in to the world building and having them engaged and coming up with a lot of the stuff together. So the tangible worlds are things that the players can touch, and also all listeners feel like they can touch as well. You know, I feel like I can just kind of like come up, I lay the concept out, and then we start building together through formal world building games, which has been really, really, really fun. For campaign 2, it was a small town that turned into a metropolis because of like superhero powers. For our Monster of the Week campaign, it was a weird and wild summer camp, and the one that we're doing now in campaign 3, which is a pirate story set in a world of planted bug people, which has been so much fun to do. I literally came up with like countries that everyone, like I remade the way that species and backgrounds worked in Dungeons and Dragons to fit in. I would rather, you know, like you bring characteristics of your nationality with you more so than like the fantasy racism that D&D keeps trying to shove down our throat.
Yeah.
Like I do things because I'm from New York just as much as I think you guys do things because you're from Germany. Like there are nationalistic ideas. We both walk fast, I think.
Yeah.
So and I think that would improve our speed, right? Like,
yep.
So I think like pulling on that was a lot more fun. And then of course they have control over the vibes of their countries. It's like, hey, Amanda, tell me about the Crags. Who is a queen that was really important in the Crags? And the Crags is like the Game of Thrones more fantasy country, which had been really fun. Or I'm like, hey, the Open Field, which has like a really like weird religious vibe going on there, is like, and I worked out like what is the religion there, and making sure it's not just like reskinned Catholicism is another thing. Is like, can we touch things that are actually using different reference points other than what we usually use for world building?
Okay. We have a third point, genre pushing storytelling, which is, I think, personally to me, the one I have the least amount of information about for what it means. So I'm very interested in knowing, what does it mean?
I think that this is kind of like our fundamental building blocks here. Like if we're going to tell a type of story, we're going to try to push it in a direction that it hasn't been done before. I mean, this is in campaign 1, which was our like quote unquote fantasy campaign. I mean, it began with a wedding with 2 princes, and I was like, oh yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that we did that. And then of course like the superhero story and the pirate story and the Monster of the Week story is like, these are all set in specific type of story genres, and we want to push them in directions that you wouldn't expect from these types of stories. Especially when we were running like campaign 2, it was really in like the beginning of the downhill of Marvel, you know, in like this after Endgame, you know. And I think it's like, well, what can we use superhero storytelling to do? How do we talk about it? And using like being able to immerse ourselves in these types of stories and then like push on them and do different things and just be excited and have it be exciting instead of the things that people might just like expect.
Okay.
All right.
It seems like a really good show, right? All of you want to go listen to it right now?
I mean, I have listened to the first to the Rising Tide campaign now since we've started talking, because also first of all, I'm just on a very big pirate hype.
Oh yeah,
right
pirates,
now.
man.
But
2023 pirate hype. Yeah.
The twist with plant and bug people just works, and that's the best thing about it.
It's amazing.
It just works, even though I thought like, wait, that sounds weird, but well, if it's weird, I love it. So
yeah, I was really excited to jump back into a fantasy world or a constructed world. Campaign 2 was in like an alternate United States. And the Monster of the Week campaign was with humans, right? It was supposed to be pulling on everyone's summer camp memories and summertime memories. And I'm like, you know what? I felt really intimidated by making a world from scratch again. And I'm like, you know, and then after watching Andor, I was like, you know what? If Star Wars can make me excited again, I think I can do it. I think I can tell a story that is exciting even if I make this from scratch. And, you know, Amanda, Brandon, and Julia are very ardent gardeners. And I'm like, you know what? Let's make some plants. Let's make some plant people. I had been really excited to kind of like make my NPCs stand out a little bit more instead of being like, here's a person and here's a person and here's a person. It's like, no, here's a tomato. Here's a poppy. Here is a pill bug. And it's just been so much more fun to set that in like this world of pirates. Especially I got really into One Piece over the pandemic. So, and just being able to tell a story like that has been a lot of fun for me.
I just now imagining Tomato talking to a mosquito in a bar. It's just, but the fruit, a tomato just sitting there with a beer in their hand, but whatever. It's just incredibly fun idea.
Isn't it fun?
Amazing.
It's so much fun. That's what it's like making up NPCs. I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if a blueberry was playing a piano? That would be fun. Yes.
And also going back, right? That's an in-world joke, not some kind of inside joke that came from years of playing together. For how many people would probably put a fruit NPC into their games because they would be the only one. But this whole world is just about fruit, vegetables, and bugs. All the funny ideas can be put in because, well, wouldn't it be fun?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, you know, I know that Dimension 20 has done something similar with this, with the Crown of Candy campaign, and I was very interested in that. Brennan was very interested in making puns based off of all of the food, and it's like 100%. You're totally right. But it's also fun, just like the world building and making that make sense. Like combining, like, so this is the genre pushing, right? Combining the pirate story and this fantasy world with what does it mean if everyone are planet bug people instead of like looking for the pun, you know what I mean? And I think that's been really fun, especially like, you know, I came up with like the monotheistic religion, which is like the planter planted everyone, and that's where the first people came through. And also there are like 4 different quote unquote species. There's flora, green folk, there's bug green folk, there's produce green folk, and then there's greenery green folk, but it doesn't really mean anything other than like, hey, I should remember to put in a shrub every once in a while. But it's been fun being like, yeah, the planter watered all four of these seeds that they planted, and then one got up and grew legs and ran away, and that's where the bug people came from. Like, they are all the same, and yet being able to like make a monotheistic religion's creation myth has been very fun within the context of planted bug people. You know, it's like, I love putting parameters around myself. It is so much easier for me to draw inside of some lines I have made for myself instead of, I don't know, make something up. It's Dune. Do whatever. I don't know. It's literally stuff. Just do some stuff. And also, like, I want to get away from the expectations that Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons has made about the fantasy genre. I mean, we're seeing this with Baldur's Gate right now, how much fantasy racism is in the game. And they're trying to cloak it underneath horniness. And it's just so wild because that's the world of fantasy that they are selling and propagating. So I'm like, all right, you go do that over there. I'm going to do my thing so far away from your elves and dwarves that I don't even want to fuck with your shit.
I'm gonna say it. I like Baldur's Gate 3 as a game. I enjoy playing it, but holy fucking shit. It's like, you cannot go 5 minutes without some weird shit happening where you're going, And that's just reflective of the world that they've created with the game and the years and years and years and years of bullshit that they've put into the lore.
Yes, exactly.
So much stuff about it really gets to me like, it's a really good game, but fucking shit. You could have also gone a little bit less with the racism, please.
if only you had done that. I've been thinking about this a lot because I ended up seeing the Dungeons and Dragons movie I got to go for I did not give them any money. I got to go for free. And it was a 6 out of 10. It was fine. But the thing that stood out to me the most was that it said it was based on Dungeons and Dragons. And that always rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, how is that possible? It's not based on a game. This is just a skeleton upon which you play the game. And then but they're saying it like that because I ended up reading this book about the history of TSR, the company that Gary Gygax started to publish Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. But the writer inserts himself quite a lot into it, and I had to put it down halfway through. So I'm not telling you the title of the book because I don't want to recommend it. It was based on this guy's campaign that he sent in. And it was based on these novels that were written based on the Forgotten Realms. It's not actually based on Dungeons and Dragons. It's based on the Forgotten Realms, which is this very Lord of the Rings-esque version of fantasy. And when you think about that, you're like, oh, I can see why they keep in all this fantasy racism, because it's like, well, that would be kind of interesting, I guess, in a novel, in a fantasy paperback novel. Oh, the drow there's a good drow and he has to deal with the fact that the humans hate him, blah, 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 blah. Like, I can see that in a novel wrestling with that idea, even if it's ham-fisted. The fact that Wizard of the Coast has been propagated that and made that into default fantasy, and then now we are expected to like tell my drow player, make up a fantasy slur and say it to them. It's like, that sucks. I hate that. And the fact that that is baked so much into a video game you need to participate in and endure in order for you to enjoy it. Like, it is now that it is crossed media, it then has become something a little bit way more intolerable and, or at least a little bit outside of like, oh, that one sentence in a novel, right? Or like this theme overriding in a series of fantasy novels. Obviously, I'm not saying that it was like good, and I'm sure it was ham-fisted, but you can see how it gets even worse as like they just start churning the IP machine, right? And then again, like, imagine what I'm going to do this in my game. I'm going to, in the world of Vertistello, I'm going to try to make up a slur for produce. No, I'm not going to do that. I have to say that to my friends' faces.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
It really is. Like, I mean, I could rant about Baldur's Gate for like 30 more minutes or even 30 hours more because I've just got to Act 3 and holy fucking shit, Act 3 is, again, like, they could have really gone into a different direction that I would have liked more, especially because it's never really the focus of the story. It's all the background stuff. It's like this entire world is a problem.
I can see like straight white guy trying to complicate a world and being like, there is racism in this world. You're gonna have to deal with it just like we do in our world. And it's like, why? What's the point? What's the intention of it? What are we trying to do here? And it's frustrating just to see like Wizard of the Coast turn the IP machine and just like continue to prop that up and just like put that out. It's like, that's a facet of the Forgotten Realms. And like, yes, if you go to the race section of the player's guide, it's like, yeah, there's a whole section to be like, hey, if you're going to play a drow, people might hate you just because of the color of your skin. It's like, that sucks. That sucks that you made me pay $30 for this hardcover book that says that in there. I think that if we are kind of like taking a step forward. It's like, if you're going to try to put this in your art, I guess, fine. That is your artistic choice for you to put in your novel. But the fact that you're selling it to me, now we're taking a step forward, that this is, you're using this, I give this printing press, and you're trying to make me pay money in it in across transmedia. Like, I don't like this. I don't like it at all, and I think it sucks, and I don't want to give you any money. That's why I'm not playing Baldur's Gate 3, because I don't want to give them money. And also, I play D&D all the time. I don't need to play the video game version, but Godspeed.
I can respect the decision, though.
Yeah, but Godspeed, I mean, like, listen, it's also an incredibly detailed, fundamental part of the RPG genre. These RPGs that are like backed by tabletop RPG mechanics. Yeah. So like, you know, anyone who's playing Godspeed, I don't want to immerse myself in the Forgotten Realms. It deeply uninterests me.
So, yeah. let's talk about...
You got me going. I'm ready to do it.
Perfect. But now let's talk about your worlds then. Because, right, you talked about creating tangible worlds that people can engage with, especially players. Also, listeners have a way of immersing themselves in these worlds, which is important for a show. I want to just ask, when you're creating your campaign, since you've done 3 campaigns, or you've started 3 campaigns at least, or you've finished 3 campaigns and are currently doing your 4th, but your 3rd D&D campaign.
Yes, correct.
When it's for a show, how does the prep look, especially before you ever get to recording session 1?
That's a really good question. I think that that's what I end up spending the most amount of time on, because I look at tabletop RPGs as a call and response, or cause and effect, right? On a fundamental level, it's the DM or the GM says, "Hey, this is what's happening," and then the players say, "I do this," and then the GM says, "Okay, well then this happens," and then they say, "Okay, because that happened, I do this." You got to come up with the premise to begin, and I think that that's where I need to just lay the premise out. So for like, we had kicked around all of these ideas that we were going to do for campaign 3, and we were thinking about, we were going to do a cowboy thing, are we going to do a pirate thing? Are we going to do all this stuff? And also I was like, I'm excited to do a fantasy world, like with different types of people that aren't just humans, or a different world than what we exist. And of course, like, I also knew everyone's like interests. So then I'm like, all right, I'm presenting with you what campaign 3 is going to be. And I was very excited about doing this. We hadn't done this on the microphone before, of legitimately me trying to get like the reactions out of my players to begin. And they're like, oh, hell yeah, this is going to be sick. I'm going to come up, blah, blah, blah. We're going to come up with all this stuff. So it's like, that's the thing that feels like most like a PowerPoint presentation. So I do a lot of work there, but then as soon as that presentation's done, they start asking questions. It's like, oh, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, hey, well, what do you think? What makes sense with this thing I've just laid out for you? And then we start building, or I start running a world building game to build something out. So it's fun. It's been really fun. I think for when you're doing something for performance, you don't want to over prep. Especially because like that's something I feel like I'm good at, but I'm not good at writing the novel as much as Brennan Lee Mulligan is. He's so good at that. He's so talented. But I want instead I'm trying to like set up a scenario. Like everything is a game to me, right? Like everything is about mutual participation where we have fun and then make something at the end. So I'm just trying to create a launching pad for everything. So I'm like, all right, pirate story, planted bug people. I've made these countries up with some vague sketches about like their qualities and their national like vibe and their nationality and like their government system. And then you tell me where you want your characters to be from, and then you feel like you can have ownership over that country a little bit more, which they have, and that's been really fun. So the thing is, you never want to over prep for performance, is what I'm trying to say. I really try, because I know, one, my players are going to do something I don't expect, so I'm just going to end up throwing stuff out anyway. But two, it's like, what's the point? Is like, so that I say, no, actually, you're wrong more than I would have to because I prepped something already. Like, it needs to be mutable in order for everyone to have a good time, and therefore the audience sees we're having a good time, so they understand that they can have a good time as well.
Yeah, and does this process is different for podcasts for you rather than home games, or is it pretty much on the same level as your home games?
I think that home games are the home game puts more responsibility on the DM. I feel like, if I imagine the quintessential Dungeons and Dragons game, it's like all these people are getting off of work and you have this one friend who's very creative, and then they're going to be the DM. And they're going to be like, hey, DM, go. He's like, hey, I'm trying to frame myself in a different way because obviously I have a creative job. So I do this as a job, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, I'm like an insurance adjuster, or I work just at regular company. It's like, and I need an outlet for my creative energy because I have no other way to do it. So therefore, this one person dumps it all into their D&D campaign. And I feel like that person ends up doing a lot more of the lift. And then the players get to have fun, but also they tell their friend that they're very creative and very smart and very talented, which I'm sure that DM wants because they don't get it from their job because of the way that the American economic system is set up. And then, of course, they get to bring food, and it's more of an excuse for friends to hang out with each other than like a creative construction or a piece of art or a piece of digital media.
No, but I really get that, right? The big difference, for example, when we record our actual plays on Sundays, for example, this week, we are recording one again. Like, sure, we might be meeting 10 minutes earlier to discuss like what has been going on with each other's lives, right? So to get a little bit of small talk to get each other accustomed to playing together for 3 to 4 hours. But when I, for example, host a Sunday session for my home game, which goes for like 8 hours, one of those hours could just be us talking about, I don't know, dating life or work
which it
or
should
something.
be.
Because we're just friends playing a game, and the game is just the excuse to, hey, let's all find the time to hang out with each other. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we just hung out playing, or even if we said, oh, okay, we reached the end of what I prepped for today. Let's just watch a movie for the next 2 hours if we want to.
Exactly. 100%. I think that's why so many of those horror stories exist about RPG horror stories. Yeah. Because it's more about like, it's actually more of an excuse for humans to like interact with each other than actually like tell a story. That's why it's like, I'm letting this guy force me into an entire thinly cloaked story about like drow slavery, because it's like, well, he's the one running the game and I really just wanted to see my friends today. And then it's like, what do? I don't know another DM. Like, I kind of understand that like humans will put themselves into uncomfortable situations to try to get the things that they want, or like to build community in this modern world. I think the other thing is like, if you weren't recording your actual play, I think you'd probably just be playing the game, right? It's like, let's take the existence of the fact that you need to create content out of your hobbies and you need to monetize your hobbies out of it. Like, it was just an excuse for you to do something together with your adult friends.
Yeah, in retrospect, that's exactly what my Tuesday group is usually, or my standard TTRPG group is just we meet up after everyone's done from work, cook something together, talk a bit, and then just escape into our fantasy worlds where we don't have all the problems that we have in our real life world. And with all of us having some sort of forgetfulness, ADHD thingamajig, where if we don't communicate often enough, we forget we exist until someone just says, hey, I'm there, let's do something. But we all enjoy our company too much to want to miss that. And therefore, it's just perfect to have something that gets us together every week. And then it's not a problem when someone can make it and stuff, because life happens.
Yeah.
But it's still a reoccurring event that we all look forward to because we all just enjoy each other's company, whether it is the game or we are just doing something else. But yeah, just having an enticement to engage with your long-term friends is a big thing,
And that thing, right, cannot be missed when you're recording or when you're creating a show. But there's, like, let's say, an added layer of professionalism to creating a show that you, once again, as advice to people out there wanting to look to this episode as a point on how to start actual plays or whatever, take yourself seriously.
Yes.
As a group of friends, as a show, do something together, right? Be professional about stuff. It's gonna give you a foot forward.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with just playing a game and don't record it. If you want to do something with your friends, just do something with your friends. Play Fortnite every Friday. Like play board games. Like, or just pick up a new one-page tabletop RPG and make dumb jokes for like 2 hours. Like, do not feel like you need to do this, because if you're going to make an actual play show, you are then entering yourself into an artistic medium that exists. It just so happens everyone's too embarrassed about their podcast to treat it seriously.
Yeah. Just thinking about what you want to do. Is it just spending time with your friends or really creating something for the world to see, hear, or anything? Just gives you a different approach on the thing that you're doing, and therefore a different outlook on how you approach it as well. Because if you just want to hang out with your friends, you don't necessarily have to record it. If you want to, that's great. But then go ahead and give it that professionalism that the thing that you want to make as a group deserves. Because when you create something artistic, it deserves all the ambition that you want to put it or should put into it. But if one of your group or some of your group don't have the same interest in that might not be the best idea for you. Think about that. Just what is your goal with what you want to do, and then give it the attention and professionalism or seriousness that all of that deserves. Because that's something that I've witnessed in some cases, that they were all having fun, blah blah, but they are not investing as much as this piece that they are creating deserves, and therefore breaking apart sooner rather than later. And that can be really, really frustrating and could even end friendships. And that's not the goal. If you want to create something with your friends, think about the things that might happen and how invested you all are in this, and then create something based on those information that you have.
I'm going to say it because I've never seen an artistic medium or community that has that big of a burnout rate as actual plays in TTRPGs or the indie TTRPG scene. And I think that's because, right, TTRPGs and creating something with TTRPGs or TTRPGs itself is pretty easy. And then you do it, and then sadly, because for whatever reason, there are a multitude of different reasons, but you burn yourself out and take the right decision to stop or take at least a step back to reevaluate. I've seen it so often, and it's kind of sad to see that this is happening over and over and over again in this medium right now.
Yeah, I just think that it's a much bigger undertaking than people understand. Because, podcasting and streaming are such an interesting a piece away from what we kind of understand all other digital creation to be, is because there is no algorithm, right? But instead, you need to put things out constantly. You need to put things out weekly. You need to stream for 4 hours a week every single Sunday night, right? And I think that you don't realize that is kind of the lifeblood of the content when you're getting into it. And then on top of that, you need to make something good, right? Good for you, good for the audience, good within the larger canon of everything that's come before or around it. And also, it's becoming very top heavy, and a lot of people are coming into the space. So it's very hard to find your foothold, especially if you're not like going out of your way to make yourself particularly unique. How am I going to stand out is always, I've said before, but is kind of like the fundamental thing about podcasting and streaming. So yeah, there's a lot of burnout, but also like I wish that people would look at it and do a lot of pre-production and really understand what they're getting into before they throw themselves into this thing and find out midstream, oh, this is actually really, really hard and I don't like doing it anymore and it feels fruitless. But if you're prepared for it and you like set up your own goals about what is success to you, then you feel like you're off to the races.
So since you've been doing it for a lot longer than I think most people have in this medium, because I think there was a very big spike during the pandemic, at least from what what the people we've talked to on this show since episode 9, our first guest episode ever, most people have always answered, I've started in the pandemic with the content we create. And that's because, right, people needed something to do. They didn't leave their houses. TTRPGs are accessible, especially creating content from your home has become very accessible in the last 10, 15 years. So yeah, it was very easy to do. And this question is, I think, twofold. First of all, since you started in 2018, 2 years before the big spike came, basically, of people in this medium.
Oh, I think it was 2000. It must have been 2017. I think it was even earlier than that.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017.
Okay, then 2017. Forgive me.
I remember, the reason why I remember is that I started the job that I met Brandon at 1 week, only a little bit before Trump got elected. And I also got a concussion and got dumped in that same like 2 week span. And then I'm going up to my new coworkers and I'm like, hey, I'm having a really bad time. I hope I don't come off as weird. I'm sorry. So yeah, I started that job in late 2016. So we must have started joining the party in 2017. Yeah.
Okay. So it's 2017. This question is twofold. And the first thing is, how was it to see that big surge during the pandemic from someone that has been doing it for years at that point? How did you feel about all of these new people coming in? What were your thoughts? What were you thinking as, maybe I am the veteran here, how can I help these people? Or, oh, fuck, now everyone is taking my spotlight. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
I was excited. I mean, having more and more people engage with the art form, I think was always really exciting. I mean, Dimension 20 kicked something off so incredibly. And seeing a show with such high production value and with such talent from the DMs and the players and from almost all the players from the beginning, it was just incredible to watch. And it really made me excited about what was going to come next. And then more people participating in the medium. I think that now, it's after the flow, now it's like I want people to engage with other things other than just, the moving past the survivorship bias of success is like the most popular things are not necessarily the best things. There's a lot of things going for them, and then trying to like come up with a larger like do a survey of all of the things that actual play could be. And then going from there, it's been really, as I said, it's been very interesting seeing YouTubers and video people and other video people and also just other media companies seeing actual play as a way to engage the parasocial relationships with their listeners. And that kind of being the default of and seeing that pop up on so many YouTube channels and seeing that happen. And also and then being like, podcasting is just video without the visual. And I'm like, no, it's not. But no, the people at large, and I think that this also corresponds with the larger, especially in the United States. I mean, taking our social justice, and I think that how so many people in the center have been pulled left, and really taking that stuff seriously and seeing more and more different types of people being like making their own shows and making a splash. But it's certainly like a second wave. I mean, the wave in 2020, it feels like a new class of shows, and it's exciting to see. No, I listen. Multitude was always about giving free resources. I feel like we're like in this podcast sphere, like there's like a tabletop RPG media sort of thing, which I don't know that much about. Like I've been podcasting over in that area over there. So I'm like, hey, I could help you. It seems like you guys are doing your own thing over there, and that's cool. That's fine.
Yeah. And regarding that, someone starting something over there, just they look up some information on how to start a podcast or how to start an actual play podcast as a GM, for example. And as someone who's been in this industry for a long time, what would be your most unconventional tip for someone getting started as a podcast GM?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the thing that I've been saying the whole time. It's like, you gotta make yourself unique. You need to consume a bunch of the medium, and you need to see why those things are successful, and then see how you can make your strengths into the thing that you push forward, which will then be your marketing push. Like, people will want to listen to your show because it's different. I mean, we have seen the trials and tribulations of the most popular shows deal with various things. Like, we saw Graduation from the Adventure Zone, right? We have seen the changeover in the amount of how much of an anthology Dimension 20 has truly been with the number of people they're pulling in. And then we saw Worlds Beyond Number, how they made a show which kind of feels like the most condensed version of all the things that people quote unquote like about actual play, right? And then it feels like something like someone created it in a lab to be the most of the things people think they like about this current mode of the art form. Right?
I think that really well sums up how I think about Worlds Beyond Numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that's Taylor Moore's steez. He did that with Root Tales of Magic. He did that with Root Tales of Magic. He did that with Oh These Those. He did it with that stuff where he just takes popular people and then throws them into this genre and then just does it. He really galvanizes the things that are the current mode, like popular people living in LA making actual play and people stoking that parasocial relationship, which is why people like it. There's a reason why it's popular, because all the fans of those people then decided to sign up for a Patreon. But I think that there's something about doing the thing that you want to do and making yourself seem unique. Like, the thing I want to do is play games. I love games. I love using games to tell a story. I am much more interested in that than like doing long form improv for like 5 episodes in a row, you know? Like, that's not my tradition. I never went to UCB. I never did the Upright Citizens Brigade. I have no improv training. So it's like we're doing something else, and I think that there's plenty of room for people to stan the various the various types of artistic modes that there could be.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this episode with us.
Of course. I realized that this, I wish I could have talked about Join the Party more, but I have so much like the cultural critique of the art form feels like the thing that I always end up getting myself into, because I like, hey, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Is the thing I always end up getting into.
No, but this is really the thing, right? When I talked to Niels, because right, we messaged on Twitter a bit about, okay, can we do an episode when scheduling, blah blah blah. I messaged Niels. This is closest we right now can get to basically a pure professional, and this person is a professional. I really want to talk to him about basically everything that he thinks about the medium and the artistic things behind it, but also, right, see where he goes with his games and with Join the Party. I mean, I can ask you basically one final question about it. I mean, this is very open-ended because, right, your campaigns are very different from each other until now. Where does it go from here? What are the plans maybe for the future, if you want to talk about that, if you can talk about that?
Yeah, I'm just very excited about Campaign 3. I think that what you said is 100% true. How every campaign is different, and I think it has to do with I think it's a direct reflection about how the artistic medium has moved forward. Like, the campaign 1 was a response to what was popular in 2017, like a response to, I think, the Adventure Zone balance and how popular that was, and the fantasy thing. Campaign 2 was me trying to push into something else, like using Dungeons and Dragons to touch on a different type of genre and also tell a story that I wanted to tell, a superhero story, kind of a modern story about what it's like as a millennial who has power and what do you do with power, and something that we were really struggling with, I think, in 2020, and when you have power, do you do the right thing? The mini campaign was us doing a different game and seeing what that was like and seeing how that reflected in the actual play genre, because Monster of the Week is so different. You set up a mystery and we would record 2 sessions at the same time because you had to finish the mystery, and then it got divided into 2 episodes. So it was a very different experience. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to go back and create a world again and really do something. I think that this is the best DM DMing I've ever done. I am pushing myself. I'm trying to do something that has not been seen in actual play every single episode. And I think I do it more often than not. And I'm really excited about it. I'm just kind of like, applying all of the things that I've taken into this campaign of Join the Party. And I think it's going really well. I'm having so much fun doing the world building and playing it out. And we've done some really dramatic stuff lately and done some reveals lately. And we're starting like a new arc today. We're recording a new arc. And, I'm also really trying to use the anime spacing, like the anime plotting of using different size arcs to tell different stories and really being able to bounce from one place to another. Like, this next arc might be 3 episodes, which then directly leads into an arc that's 10. And just trying to vary the arc plot length has been something I've been very excited about. So yeah, I'm trying to do something, and my players are certainly along for the ride and very engaged and having a lot of fun and doing something that has not been seen in the space. Like, I'm really trying to analyze the genre for what it is.
And with that, one final question for you.
Please.
Where can people find you trying these new things? Where can people interact with you? And yeah,
absolutely.
Anything you want to shout out, go ahead.
Please. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Having any chance to talk about like artistic medium and genre at large is always fun for me. So thank you guys so much. You can find me on the internet. I usually use Twitter the most at L_Silvero, EL_SILVERO. My name if I was a Lucha Libre wrestler. I am having a lot of fun on TikTok right now. I'm Eric the Silver over there. And go check out Join the Party. Check out the other shows on Multitude. It's fun. I am so happy that I get to do this full time and really devote all of my brain power to pushing the artistic media that I like forward. So it's great. So go check out Join the Party. We could always use more listeners. We could always use more people saying, "Oh my God, this show is incredible." Just saying it out loud. Our listeners are wonderful, but they're such good people. They're like, "Oh, hey, did you like Join the Party?" I texted each other. We need like obnoxious, toxic fans out there standing for Join the Party. That's what we really need. Our listeners are two good people. Please, if you're toxic, come listen to Join the
Party. All right. So, yeah, thanks, Eric, for doing this episode with us. I had a blast. I hope you did too.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you for joining us. Hear you on the next one, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DoubleDM. It appears you liked this one. What we had to say and our advice helped you. Why not show us how we helped you in a rating, or even write a review detailing us how we helped? You can do this on the platform that you are listening on right now. It's just a few clicks, doesn't take long, and helps us out. It gets us out there and our advice into more ears of more people. Thanks again for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. Have a great day, and hear you on the next one. Bye-bye.